Stories of Futures Past presents 5 stories featuring Going Crazy, Volume 2. Vassi by Art Lewis. Name Your Symptom by Jim Harmon. The Hated by Frederik Pohl. My Robot by Slesar. Sibling by Waltham. Vassi by Art Lewis. Originally published in Worlds of If, January 1961. Narrated by Trussel. The apartment is called a single. It contains a Murphy bed, a chest of drawers, an overstuffed chair, a sofa, a coffee table, a 17-inch television set, a bookcase partially filled with the volumes A through F of an encyclopedia from the supermarket, assorted paperback books, and a radio that doesn't work. In the ceiling is a fixture with 2 25-watt bulbs. A short hallway leads to the bathroom and the kitchen. Julia Fenway stood outside her apartment, fumbling in her bag for her keys. She had never had any trouble finding her keys before. Her purse was always neat and orderly. And she was breathing hard from the short walk from the bus at the corner and down the long corridor to the lonesome apartment door. Those keys! Where are those keys? I'm becoming a regular pack rat lately. Look at that bag. Did you ever see so much junk? She thrust her hand deep inside and felt around. A crumpled Kleenex, worn-out lipstick, change purse, pencils, movie stubs. A coldness. The keys. Her heart was pounding. She pressed the hand with the keys to her bosom. It was pounding. At least it was working. She managed to get the door open just as the landlady's door down the hall gushed forth cooked cabbage odour, and Mrs. Schultz stuck her head out. Julia closed her door behind her until she heard the lock click. Of all the people in the world, why was it the Mrs. Schultzes she attracted? At the sound of the lock, the cat, Belle, poked her head out of the kitchen. She walked lazily into the room, rubbing her side along the wall to scratch off the sleep. Then she leaped to the top of the dresser and started to wash herself. Julia stood with her back against the door. Her arms, tired of reaching out, hung limply against her sides. A ray of sunlight streamed through the partly open window, and a little pool of it snuggled on her pillow. It had been such a long ride in from Beverly Hills and on 2 buses. She had sat in the back where it wasn't so crowded, and the smell of exhaust was still in her nostrils. She walked over to the dresser and put her purse down beside the cat and ran her fingers caressingly through the soft fur. Belle took a swipe with a hind paw. Julia rested her head on the dresser. "I'm going to die, Belle." The cat sat up and lifted a front paw. She washed it with little delicate strokes from her tongue. Julia moved over to the bed and sat down on the edge of it. She slipped her shoes off. Her feet hurt. They always hurt in heels. Why does one get dressed up to go see the doctor? He could have told her she had 6 months to live while she was wearing flats. He didn't actually blurt it out as I walked in the door. He fooled around under that sheet for a long time, and then he said it. No, not then either. He just looked pained and hurt and a little white around the lips, and he told me to get dressed and come into his office. He had the lab reports on his desk, and he pounded on them, and he said, "You're as good as dead now." I wish he had. Then I could hate him. I could hate instead of feeling numb all over. He didn't want to tell me anything. Just get ready for an operation. No, there really wasn't any rush, but soon. And then I dragged it out of him. I insisted I had a right to know. It was my life. No, I don't have any family here. No one. No one. A brother in New York. Don't call him. The doctor stammered like a schoolboy who's unprepared in class. Julia fell back on the bed. She stared at the unlighted ceiling fixture. She should cry, but she'd cried in the doctor's office, and there was nothing left to cry. 6 months to live. Maybe only 5 months. Certainly no more than 7 with the operation. A spring in the bed got her in the back. She ought to tell Mrs. Schultz to fix that. She certainly didn't want to spend her last 6 months sleeping on a loose spring. Spend her last 6 months! She turned over on her stomach and pressed her face into the blanket. Her body was rigid. She tried to contemplate her own death. She should call her brother. No, she would die first. Hello. Excuse me. My name is Vassi. Julia raised her head and looked around the room. It was empty. Would you say this is a typical prior dwelling? Julia sat up. There was no one. Oh, I hadn't thought of that possibility. I suppose we don't have a similar frame of reference. You'll never understand my thoughts. She got off the bed. She walked around the room, and her stocking feet made little padded sounds on the cotton carpet. Then she crossed to the door of the apartment and pressed her ear against it. "Are you a ventriloquist?" she said. "A ventriloquist? Oh, my, no. I'm a historian." The voice was in her head. "I'm insane." It had to happen. She touched her fingertips to her mouth. "Is that so? That's too bad. We're over and done with that sort of thing." "I'll wash my face with cold water. It must be the strain. I shouldn't have forced the doctor." "You are alone, aren't you? I looked around rather carefully. I didn't see anyone except that thing on that piece of furniture." Julia looked at Belle. The cat was asleep on the dresser. She started to walk to the bathroom, but stopped in front of the bed and sat down. Her head was going to burst. "Please," she said. "Please stop." "I really don't want to intrude, but I have my recorder right here. It won't take long, and then I must move on. Now I noticed you're fully dressed. Most remarkable. We always thought you prior people indulged in sex orgies almost continuously." "My God!" "Your thoughts are confused. Is it because you're insane? You haven't had much experience in thought projection, have you?" Julia jumped from the bed and ran into the bathroom. She locked the door behind her and turned on the cold water full force. She cupped her hands under the faucet and plunged her face into the cascading coldness. "My name is Julia Fenway. I'm a file clerk at Continental Insurance. I'm going to die, and I'm not preoccupied with sex." She turned off the faucet and stared into the sink. The water gathered into a little whirlpool and disappeared down the drain. There was a knock on the bathroom door. The voice was in her head. "I wonder if I could see that. We have some rather indistinct writings on running water. I'd like to bring them up to date." The cold water didn't help. If anything, it was worse now. The knocking came from the door. She was sure of it. But the voice was inside her. "May I come in?" Julia sat down on the edge of the tub. She squeezed her head between her hands. "I don't deserve this. What did I do to deserve this?" "Please, I'm on a tight schedule." "So am I. Go away." She was talking to it. She was talking to the voice in her head. Then it was very quiet. Julia watched the door, waiting for someone to walk through its solidness. Nothing happened. She lowered her head and started to count the tiny tiles in the floor. If I count one row very carefully, it will take me 5 minutes. 2 rows, 10 minutes. 3 rows. She started to count. As she was midway through the 4th row, the voice said, "I don't think you realize the importance of my visit. We recognize your right of privacy, but don't you feel in this case—" Julia jumped up and pulled open the door. "Let me die in peace!" She ran into the other room and stood in the middle of it, looking all around, breathing hard. Belle leaped down from the dresser, her doze finished, and rubbed against Julia's leg. The water in the bathroom was running. She hadn't shut it off. But she had. She had! The water started again. It stopped. It started. It stopped. How quaint! There is someone here. Who are you? Vassi. Vassi? I'm Chief Historian, Research Division. It's my first trip in time. The scientists have been playing around with this thing for years, and they've only just let us take it over. A time traveller? Julia stood very still. Her eyes searched the room slowly once again. The window was open about 3 inches, too small for anyone to squeeze through. The door was locked from the inside. There was absolutely no one in the room. In a desperate state, she was hunting for an out. She was involved in a fairy story. Her body started to relax. I can't see you, Mr. Vassi. I can't accept death. I'm looking for escape. You can't see me? I'm standing right in front of you. I can't see you. I don't understand. I can see you. Here, take my hand. For a moment, Julia hoped. There was nothing. Why, I can't touch you. Not even a breath of wind. Julia walked over to the dresser and took a package of cigarettes out of her handbag. She carried it over to the sofa and sat down. You walked through me. She lit the cigarette, inhaled deeply, and blew out the smoke in a long, steady stream. When she was a little girl, and she had a sharp pain in her side, her mother would say, "It's only gas. Hold on, it'll pass." She would hold on. "Mother, help me." The voice in her head. I wish I had paid more attention to those scientists. What was it they said? I had so much to do before I left. Something about transporting living matter. Are you sure I'm invisible? I can't see you. Do you people have trouble with your eyes? No, that's not it. I can't touch you. And I'd expected to bring back some artifacts. I'm terribly disappointed. I'm sorry. And well, you might be. It's going to be extremely difficult going around asking people a lot of questions when they can't see me. You must have had quite a start. Stop it! Stop it! My head! Oh, dear God, my head! Julia got up. I'm going out. You are having trouble with the thought projection. I'll sit down and be quiet for a moment. The voice stopped. Julia paused at the door. The room was quiet. Breathing. She heard breathing. Her own? She held her breath. It was there in the room. She was sure of it. It was a whisper in her throat. You are real. The faucet, the water, the knock on the door. You are real. If she held on, it would pass like gas. You are real. She moved trance-like back into the room. You see me now? No, I heard you breathe. Can you touch me? No. She heard her own blood in her ears. Her own breath forced itself between her lips. His breathing was gone. It was a dream. She said, You're gone. Over here, on the arm of the couch. She turned. She fought to silence herself. She heard the soft breathing from the direction of the couch. "Who are you, Mr. Vassi?" "It's just Vassi. No, mister. I already told you who and what I am." "A time traveller from some distant future," she said. "Most of your records disappeared in the final war. We want to pick up the traces. Best way to do that is to travel back in time." "It sounds like such a long way. How long?" "If it was true, it was a miracle. If it wasn't... Julia, you're a realist." "It would be a meaningless term for you. It's an age, an eon away." Julia sat down on the edge of the overstuffed chair. She noticed a faint layer of dust on the coffee table. The apartment looked messy with a bed out of the wall. Ever since the first visit to the doctor 3 weeks ago, she hadn't thought of cleaning. "I'm afraid the apartment doesn't look very presentable." "Aren't you comforted to know that the world has survived?" "But I won't survive." She looked at the dust again. "You see, I don't do much entertaining." "Is that so? I wouldn't know. Do you mind if I record our conversation?" "I don't mind. It's nice to have someone to talk to, even if I can't see you." "Julia, you're a realist." "Yes, well, that is a bother. Now, would you mind telling me a few pertinent facts about civilization as you know it?" "I don't think I know too much about that sort of thing," said Julia. "I'd hoped to land in the middle of a library of some sort." His voice broke off. "You don't seem to have much of a collection of books here." Julia said, "Are you near the bookcase?" "No wonder the records didn't last if this is the way they were kept." "Vassi, can you touch the books?" She got up and went to the bookcase. "Yes." "Pick one up." "They're no use to me. This isn't history." "Pick one up." "I haven't got the time. I have to move on." "Vassi, you touched the faucet, didn't you? And you knocked on the door." "Yes." "That does mean I can bring back artifacts." "Why can't you touch me?" "Now I have to get to a place that will do me some good. A library, a store. Isn't that what you call them? A museum. Are any of these things nearby?" "Let me go with you. I'll be your guide. I'll show you my time." "But won't you be uncomfortable? I'm invisible." "I don't care. No one can steal you from me this way." "Steal me?" "Vassi, why can't you touch me?" "I'm not too sure. I think it's because you're alive. You see, life is a transient thing. Matter is continuous in one form or another. Matter existing today always existed and will always exist, or something like that. I didn't listen too carefully. Anyhow, it's possible for someone to travel back in time, but not ahead. Do I make myself clear? It's out of my line, you know." Julia reached down and scooped up Belle. "Can you touch her?" "What is that?" "My cat. Can you touch her?" "A cat? My, the anatomists would love to see that. But it's the same as with you. My hand passes right through her." Julia put Belle back on the floor. Her mind was racing. Vassi said, "She's sitting right where I'm standing." "I've got to believe it's not a nightmare. I've got to believe you're real and that you can help me." "If I can do it quickly. I have so much else to do. Others are waiting to use the machine." "Are people well where you come from?" "Very well, thank you." "Are there any incurable diseases?" She tried to listen for his breathing. "Incurable? You mean sickness that doesn't respond to treatment?" "No, of course not." "Then take me with you," she cried. "You just said you wanted to guide me here." "Take me with you to your time." "I can't do that. I can't even touch you." "There must be a way. You have got to think of something." "Even if I could take you, I'm not supposed to." "Why?" It would mix up history to remove persons from their time. It might even be dangerous with artifacts. I suppose we couldn't hold on to them very long."
"History? I have no history. I'm going to die very soon. No one depends on me. I have no one. Please take me, Vassi."
"I feel very strange."
"Are you all right?"
"Yes, I just feel odd."
"How?"
"First you want to guide me. Then you want to come with me. You don't care about mankind's survival. You sound so terrified and confused."
Julia sank down on the couch. If only she could see him. "Don't leave me to die."
"How strange to talk about dying," said Vassi. "We all live so long we never think about it."
"You will take me with you, Vassi?"
"If people in your time have such short lives, then why does dying trouble you? It would seem a matter of course."
"Vassi, I haven't lived yet."
"This is out of my line. I'll tell you what, when I return, I'll talk to one of the scientists. If they're interested in the project, they'll send someone back."
"How long will that be?"
"Now, let's see if I can figure in your time. I'd say about a year."
Julia closed her eyes. She felt dampness under the lids. Her voice was hollow as she spoke to the empty room. "I'll be dead in 6 months."
And the voice in her head echoed, 6 months.
"Vassi, isn't there someone you can talk to now?"
He didn't answer her.
Julia looked around the room. "Vassi, are you still here? Vassi? Vassi, if you don't talk, I can't tell if you're still here. Vassi, please answer me. Did I talk too much? I didn't mean to run on about my problems. I know you have a job to do. Maybe you can squeeze me in. I don't want to keep you from your work, Vassi. You didn't go, did you? You didn't leave me. Don't leave. I believe in you. I believe in you." And now she had the aloneness she had longed for. He was gone, and she would be left with the Mrs. Schultzes and the doctor. She went from the living room to the kitchen to the bathroom and back into the living room, listening, hoping to catch the small sound of his breathing. But her body would not be quiet, and she heard nothing except herself. She stood for a long while, looking down at the bed. The sunlight drifted from the pillow onto the covers, and finally spilled off of the foot of the bed onto the floor, and the room was a shade darker. She was a stone, but a stone whose blood gurgled, and stomach rumbled, and heartbeat and pulse pounded, so loudly she could hear nothing else. Her legs gave way, and she crumpled to the bed, and she was silent at last. The breathing came from the direction of the window. She spoke into the covers. "Vassi, why didn't you answer me?"
"You tempt me, and I have so much to do, so much ground to cover."
"You can come back?"
"We haven't got enough of these time centres. There's quite a line-up to use them. If I go now, there's no telling how long it'll take me to get back."
Julia got up and went to the window. "Am I facing you?"
"Yes."
"You're my only hope, wild as it seems. Vassi, wouldn't it be helpful to your research to have a real live person from my time to study?"
Vassi spoke slowly. "You mean you would be willing to have us study you?"
"Within limits. No, not within limits."
"They'll be very angry if I come back without my research project."
"Are people that cold in your time?" asked Julia.
"Cold?"
Vassi repeated in bewilderment. "Heartless?"
"Heartless? I hardly think so."
"I mean callous, without pity, without compassion."
"I've been very busy. I haven't thought about it."
"Do men and women marry in your time?"
"Yes, they do."
"Are you married?"
"No, you see, I'm not very presentable. Besides, I have my research.
To me, you're the most beautiful man in the world.
You can't see me. If you saw me, you wouldn't think so.
I can hear you. That's all I need.
Julia turned from the window and walked back to the couch. When she sat down, she could feel herself trembling. Never, never in her life had she spoken to a man like that. Maybe, if she could see him, his eyes would be mocking her. She said, "If you take me back with you, then later, when I'm well, I could come back with you and show you everything you would want to see. Then I could be your guide." He was standing in front of her. She could hear him breathing again. There was excitement in his breathing, she was sure of it. He said, "I wish I could touch you. You're very beautiful."
"Vassi, in my own time I'm ugly. Perhaps I belong in your time."
Then the excitement that was in his breathing was in his voice. All right. I'll see what I can do. You wait right here. It may take me several years to get back, but I'll do it if I can."
"Several years? Vassi, I can't wait that long."
She was very near despair. No, you don't understand. In your time it'll only be a matter of minutes. The controls would be set to right now, however long it may take to have the project approved in my time." The room was quiet. A slight breeze drifted in through the open window. Julia sat very still on the couch for a few moments. Belle rubbed herself against the coffee table and then climbed into Julia's lap. She had to hold on. She had to believe. A world with no illness. A world where people live practically forever. A world with Vassi. She scratched the cat behind the ears. Belle started to purr softly.
"Belle," Julia said, "what am I going to do with you?" "Vassi will think of something. He's coming back, Belle. He's coming back, and he'll take both of us with him." She picked up the cat and put it on the couch. Then she got up and went to the mirror over the dresser. She pushed her hair back from her face. "He said I was beautiful. Not even my mother ever said I was beautiful. What will they think at the office when I don't come in tomorrow or even phone? They won't think anything. They'll get Sheila with the black hair and the big bust to do my work, and they won't think about me at all. Even that one didn't say I was beautiful. Not even right after I moved in here, and he was a little drunk, and he could have said it then of all times, but he didn't. He just looked a little ashamed, maybe disgusted afterward, and he talked about being late for a dinner appointment." There was a knock on the door. Julia whirled from the mirror. Vassi must have gotten a little off course. She hadn't thought of that possibility. She walked quickly to the door. "Vassi?" she asked. "It's me, Mrs. Schultz." "What do you want?"
You went to the doctor today. I expected you'd come by. Tell me, how are you?
Go away.
Julia, open up. Maybe I can do something for you.
Go away. Please go away.
You're not feeling so well?
No.
Bad news, maybe?
I don't want to see anyone, Mrs. Schultz.
I understand. I'll come back later.
Footsteps went down the hallway. A door opened. The sound of a television set. A door closed.
Vassi, hurry. I don't know whether or not it really happened. I'm not sure now, Vassi. I am going out of my mind. I am clutching at straws. Come back, Vassi. Come back. Reassure me.
They said it would work.
Vassi!
They said it would work, but it sounds like a terrible risk. We'll do it with a cat first.
Vassi, where are you?
Right in front of you. Now listen carefully.
Are you going to take me with you?
We'll try the cat first. If it works with a cat, Then we'll try you."
Julia was trembling. "What do I do?"
"The first thing we have to do is kill the cat.
What are you talking about?"
When the cat is dead, it will become as inanimate an object as any of those books over there. In that state, I should be able to transport it to my time. There, the doctors will revive it. Everything is ready."
"I can't kill my cat."
"If it works, it's only temporary."
"And if it doesn't work?" she whispered.
"I'd rather it be the cat than you."
"I never dreamed."
"We'll have to hurry. They are waiting."
"I can't kill Belle."
"You're not killing her. You're transporting her."
The tears were in Julia's eyes again. "It's crazy. I'm crazy."
"Look, I'd do it, but I can't physically touch the cat."
I know.
"They said suffocation was best. It leaves fewer complications."
Julia bent down and picked up the cat. Her tears fell on the animal's fur. She held it close to her. The cat was quiet, unknowing. Julia said, "Do me first."
"Even if I could, I would not," said Vassi. "The cat first."
"I've had her since she was a kitten, a little round ball with a button for a nose. I can't do this to her. If it does not work, this is my madness, not hers."
"What were you going to do with her 6 months from now?"
6 months. Alone. She would be left alone. Belle has never been alone except for the hours when I'm at work. Who would take care of her? She's such a fussy eater. I have to feed a liver from my hand."
"You'll be together."
"Together."
"Take one of the pillows on the bed. Don't think about it. Do it."
Julia carried Belle over to the bed. As she tried to put it down, one of its claws became entangled in her dress. The cat started to struggle as it finally awakened. Julia reached over for a pillow. Sweat stood out on her forehead. Her tears blinded her. She saw the mass of fur. She saw the softness. The claws were freed. She brought the pillow down over Belle. Julia blacked out, sprawled across the pillow. She couldn't have been out long. She pulled herself from the bed. The pillow was on the floor. Belle was gone. Vassi's voice was in her head. "It worked. The anatomists are wild. I've never seen so much excitement." "Belle is all right?"
"Wonderful. It took them no time at all to revive her. The laboratory is a bedlam. Everyone wants to examine her."
"How should I do it? I'll never be able to suffocate myself." She laughed a little. "I can't even turn on the gas range. Mine is electric." She looked around the apartment. If she slashed her wrists, there would be too much blood. She hated blood. The thought of poison repelled her. Wait, she had it. She pulled one of the sheets off the bed and twisted it. She pushed the overstuffed chair into the center of the room and stood on one of the arms to attach an end of the sheet to the ceiling fixture. At the other end, she made a noose. There was a knock on the door again. "Julia, if you're not well, it's no good you should be alone," Mrs. Schultz said. Julia slipped the noose over her head. "Vassi, do you love me?"
"Of course. I just hope you'll love me."
Mrs. Schultz knocked hard. "Julia, I hear you talking. I know you're home. Let me in. I have some soup for you." "Vassi, do you think I'm beautiful?"
"The most beautiful woman I have ever seen."
Mrs. Schultz pounded on the door. "Julia, why don't you answer me?" As Julia stepped off the arm of the chair, she saw the open window. A thought crossed her mind before the noose tightened. Belle could have jumped out of the window when I passed out. "Julia, you're a realist." Mrs. Schultz put down the pot of soup and opened the door. The apartment is called a single. It consists of a Murphy bed, a chest of drawers, an overstuffed chair, a sofa, a coffee table, a 17-inch television set,
a bookcase partially filled with the volumes A through F of an encyclopedia from the supermarket and assorted paperback books, and a radio that doesn't work. In the ceiling is a fixture with two 25-watt bulbs. From the fixture hangs a twisted sheet with a hangman's knot in the end of it. The noose is quite empty. So is the apartment. The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now for the next story. Name Your Symptom by Jim Harmon. Originally published in Galaxy, May 1956. Narrated by Tom Trussel. Henry Infield placed the insulated circlet on his head gently. The gleaming rod extended above his head about a foot, the wires from it leading down into his collar, along his spine, and finally out his pants leg to a short metallic strap that dragged on the floor. Clyde Morgan regarded his partner. Just suppose, you were serious about this. Why not just the shoes? Infield turned his soft blue eyes to the black and tan Oxfords with the very thick rubber soles. They might get soaked through. Morgan took his foot off the chair behind the desk and sat down. Suppose they were soaked through, and you were standing on a metal plate, steps, or a manhole cover. What good would your lightning rod do you then? Infield shrugged slightly. I suppose a man must take some chances. Morgan said, You can't do it, Henry. You're crossing the line. The people we treat are on one side of the line, and we're on the other. If you cross that line, you won't be able to treat people again. The small man looked out the large window, blinking myopically at the brassy sunlight. That's just it, Clyde. There's a line between us, a wall. How can we really understand the people who come to us if we hide on our side of the wall? Morgan shook his thick head, ruffling his thinning red hair. I don't know, Henry, but staying on our side is a pretty good way to keep sane, and that's quite an accomplishment these days. Infield whirled and stalked to the desk. That's the answer! The whole world is going mad, and we are just sitting back watching it hike along. Do you know that what we are doing is really the most primitive medicine in the world? We're treating the symptoms, and not the disease. One cannibal walking another with sleeping sickness doesn't cure anything. Eventually the savage dies, just as all those sick savages out there in the street will die, unless we can cure the disease, not only the indications. Morgan shifted his ponderous weight uneasily. Now, Henry, it's no good to talk like that. We psychiatrists can't turn back the clock. There just aren't enough of us or enough time to give that old-fashioned therapy to all the sick people. Infield leaned on the desk and glared. I called myself a psychiatrist once, but now I know we're semi-mechanics, semi-engineers, semi-inventors, semi-lots of other things, but certainly not even semi-psychiatrists. A psychiatrist wouldn't give a phaetic gyro to a man with claustrophobia. His mind went back to the first gyro ball he had ever issued. The remembrance of his pride in the thing sickened him. Floating before him in memory was the vertical hoop and the horizontal hoop, both of shining steel impervium alloy. Transfixed in the twin circles was the face of the patient, slack with smiles and sweat. But his memory was exaggerating the human element. The gyro actually passed over a man's shoulder, through his legs, under his arms. Any time he felt the walls creeping in to crush him, he could withdraw his head and limbs into the circle and feel safe. Steel impervium alloy could resist even a nuclear explosion. The phaetic gyro ball was worn day and night, for life. The sickness overcame him. He sat down on Morgan's desk. "That's just one thing, the gyro ball. There are so many others, so many." Morgan smiled. "You know, Henry, not all of our cures are not all are like that. Those cures for mother complexes aren't even obvious. If anybody does see that button in a patient's ear, it looks like a hearing aid. Yet for a nominal sum, the patient is equipped to hear the soothing recorded voice of his mother saying, 'It's all right, everything's all right, Mummy loves you, it's all right.'" "But is everything all right?" Infield asked intensely. "Suppose the patient is driving over 100 on an icy road. He thinks about slowing down, but there's the voice in his ear. Or suppose he's walking down a railroad track and hears a train whistle. If he can hear anything over that verbal pablum gushing in his ear." Morgan's face stiffened. "You know as well as I do that those voices are nearly subsonic. They don't cut a sense efficiency more than 23%. "At first, Clyde, only at first. But what about the severe case where we have to burn a three-dimensional smiling mother image on the eyes of the patient with radiation? With that image over everything he sees, and with that insidious voice drumming in his head night and day, do you mean to say that man's senses will only be impaired 23%? Why, he'll turn violently schizophrenic sooner or later, and you know it. The only cure we have for that is still a straitjacket, a padded cell, or one of those inhuman lobotomies." Morgan shrugged helplessly. "You're an idealist." "You're damn right." Infield slammed the door behind him. The cool air of the street was a relief. Infield stepped into the main stream of human traffic and tried to adjust to the second change in the air. People didn't bathe very often these days. He walked along, buffeted by the crowd, carried along in this direction, shoved back in that direction. Most people in the crowd seemed to be normals, but you couldn't tell. Many cures were not readily apparent. A young man with black glasses and a radar headset, a photophobe, was unable to keep from being pushed against Infield. He sounded out the lightning rod, his face changing when he realized it must be some kind of cure. "Pardon me," he said warmly. "Quite all right." It was the first time in years that anyone had apologized to Infield for anything. He had been one of those condemned normals, more to be scorned than pitied. Perhaps he could really get to understand these people, now that he had taken down the wall. Suddenly something else was pushing against Infield, forcing the air from his lungs. He stared down at the magnetic suction dart clinging leech-like to his chest. Model Acrophobe 101X, he catalogued immediately. Description, safety belt. But his emotions didn't behave so well. He was thoroughly terrified, heart racing, sweat glands pumping. The impervium cable undulated vulgarly. Some primitive fear of snake symbols? His mind wondered while panic crushed him. "Uncouple that cable!" The shout rang out. It was not his own. A clean-cut young man with mouse-coloured hair was moving toward the stubble-chinned, heavy-shouldered man quivering in the centre of a web of impervium cables stuck secure to the walls and windows of buildings facing the street, the sidewalk, a mailbox, the lamp-post, and Infield. Mousehair yelled hoarsely, "Uncouple it, Davies! Can't you see the guy's got a lightning rod? You're grounding him!" "I can't," Davies groaned. "I'm scared." Halfway down the 20 feet of cable, Mousehair grabbed on. "I'm holding it. Release it, you hear?" Davies fumbled for the broad belt around his thickening middle. He jabbed the button that sent a negative current through the cable. The magnetic suction dart dropped away from Infield like a thing that had been alive and now was killed. He felt an overwhelming sense of relief. After breathing deeply for a few moments, he looked up to see Davies releasing and drawing all his darts into his belt, making it resemble a Hydra-sized spiked dog collar. Mousehair stood by tensely as the crowd disassembled. "This isn't the first time you've pulled something like this, Davies," he said. "You weren't too scared to release that cable. You just don't care about other people's feelings. This is official." Mousehair drove a fast, hard right into the soft blue flesh of Davies's chin. The big man fell silently. The other turned to Infield. "He was unconscious on his feet," he explained. "He never knew he fell." "What did you mean by that punch being official?" Infield asked, while trying to arrange his feelings into the comfortable, familiar patterns. The young man's eyes almost seemed to narrow, although his face didn't move. He merely radiated narrow eyes. "How long have you been cured?" Not long," Infield evaded. The other glanced around the street. He moistened his lips and spoke slowly. "Do you think you might be interested in joining a fraternal organization of the cured?" Infield's pulse raced, trying to get ahead of his thoughts and losing out. A chance to study a pseudo-culture of the cured, developed in isolation. "Yes, I think I might. I owe you a drink for helping me out. How about it?" The man's face paled so fast, Infield thought for an instant that he was going to faint. "All right, I'll risk it." He touched the side of his face away from the psychiatrist. Infield shifted around, trying to see that side of his benefactor, but couldn't manage it in good grace. He wondered if the fellow was sporting a mum-voice hearing aid and was afraid of raising her ire. He cleared his throat, noticing the affectation of it. "My name's Infield." "Price," the other answered absently. "George Price. I suppose they have liquor at the club. We can have a drink there, I guess." Price set the direction, and Infield fell in at his side. "Look, if you don't drink, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. It was just a suggestion." Under the mousy hair, Price's strong features were beginning to gleam moistly. "You are lucky in one way, Mr. Infield. People take one look at your cure and don't ask you to go walking in the rain. But even after seeing this, some people still ask me to have a drink." This was revealed, as he turned his head, to be a small metal cube above his left ear. Infield supposed it was a cure, although he had never issued one like it. He didn't know if it would be good form to inquire what kind it was. "It's a cure for alcoholism," Price told him. "It runs a constant blood check to see that the alcohol level doesn't go over the sobriety limit." "What happens if you take one too many?" Price looked off, as if at something not particularly interesting, but more interesting than what he was saying. "It drives a needle into my temple and kills me." The psychiatrist felt cold fury rising in him. The cures were supposed to save lives, not endanger them. What kind of irresponsible idiot could have issued such a device? He demanded angrily. "I did," Price said. "I used to be a psychiatrist. I was always good in shop. This is a pretty effective mechanism, if I say so myself. It can't be removed without causing my death, and it's indestructible. Impervium shielded, you see." Price probably would never get crazy enough for liquor to kill himself, Infield knew. The threat of death would keep him constantly shocked sane. Men hide in the comforts of insanity, but when faced with death, they are often forced back to reality. A man can't move his legs. In a fire, though, he may run. His legs were definitely paralyzed before, and maybe again, but for one moment he would forget the moral defeat of his life and his withdrawal from life and live in enforced sanity. But sometimes the withdrawal was, or could become, too complete. "We're here." Infield looked up self-consciously and noticed that they had crossed 2 streets from his building and were standing in front of what appeared to be a small, dingy cafe. He followed Price through the screeching screen door. They seated themselves at a small table with a red-checked cloth. Infield wondered why cheap bars and restaurants always used red-checked cloths. Then he looked closer and discovered the reason. They did a remarkably good job of camouflaging the spots of grease and alcohol. A fat man who smelled of the grease and alcohol of the tablecloths shuttled up to them with a towel on his arm, staring ahead of him at some point in time rather than space. Price lit a cigarette with unsteady hands. "Reggie is studying biblical text. Cute gadget. His contact lenses are made up of a lot of layers of polarized glass. Every time he blinks, the amount of polarization changes and a new page appears. His father once told him that if he didn't study his Bible and pray for him, his old dad would die." The psychiatrist knew the threat on the father's part couldn't create such a fixation by itself. His eyebrows faintly inquired. Price nodded jerkily. 20 years ago, at least. "What'll you have, Georgie?" Reggie asked. The young man snubbed out his cigarette viciously. "Bourbon, straight." Reggie smiled, a toothy, vacant comedy relief smile. "Fine. The good book says a little wine is good for a man, or something like that. I don't remember exactly." Of course it didn't, Infield knew. Why should he? It was useless to learn his Bible lessons to save his father, because it was obvious his father was dead. He would never succeed, because there was no reason to succeed. But he had to try, didn't he, for his father's sake? He didn't hate his father for making him study. He didn't want him to die. He had to prove that. Infield sighed. At least this device kept the man on his feet, doing some kind of useful work instead of rotting in a padded cell with a probably imaginary Bible. A man could cut his wrists with the edge of a sheet of paper if he tried long enough, so of course the Bible would be imaginary. "But Georgie," the waiter complained, "you know you won't drink it. You ask me to bring you drinks and then you just look at them. Boy, do you look funny when you're looking at drinks. Honest, Georgie, I want to laugh when I think of the way you look at a glass with a drink in it." He did laugh. Price fumbled with the cigarette stub in the black iron ashtray, examining it with the skill of scientific observation. "Mr. Infield is buying me the drink, and that makes it different." Reggie went away. Price kept dissecting the tobacco and paper. Infield cleared his throat and again reminded himself against such obvious affectations. "You were telling me about some organization of the cured?" he said as a reminder. Price looked up, no longer interested in the relic of a cigarette. He was suddenly intensely interested and intensely observant of the rest of the cafe. "Was I? I was? Well, suppose you tell me something. What do you really think of the incompletes?" The psychiatrist felt his face frown. "Who?" "I forgot. You haven't been one of us long. The incompletes is a truer name for the so-called normals. Have you ever thought of just how dangerous these people are, Mr. Infield?" "Frankly, no," Infield said, realizing it was not the right thing to say, but tiring of constant pretense. "You don't understand. Everyone has some little phobia or fixation. Maybe everyone didn't have one once, but after being told they did have them for generations, everyone who didn't have one developed a defense mechanism and an aberration so they would be normal. If that phobia isn't brought to the surface and cured, it may arise any time and endanger other people. The only safe, good, sound citizens are cured. Those lacking cures, the incompletes, must be dealt with." Infield's throat went dry. "And you're the one to deal with them?" "It's my destiny," Price quickly added. "And yours too, of course." Infield nodded. Price was a demagogue, young, handsome, dynamic, likeable, impassioned with his cause, and convinced that it was his divine destiny. He was a psychopathic egotist, and a dangerous man. doubly dangerous to Infield because, even though he was one of the few people who still read books from the old days of therapy to recognize Price for what he was, he nevertheless still liked the young man for the intelligence behind the egotism and the courage behind the fanaticism. "How are we going to deal with the incompletes?" Infield asked. Price started to glance around the cafe, then half shrugged, almost visibly thinking that he shouldn't run that routine into the ground. "We'll cure them whether they want to be cured or not, for their own good." Infield felt cold inside. After a time, he found that the roaring was not just in his head. It was thundering outside. He was getting sick. Price was a type of man who could spread his ideas throughout the ranks of the cured, if indeed the plot was not already universal, imposed upon many ill minds. He could picture an entirely cured world, and he didn't like the view. Every cure cut down on the mental and physical abilities of the patient as it was, whether Morgan and the others admitted it or not. But if everyone had a crutch to lean on for one phobia, he would develop secondary symptoms. People would start needing 2 cures, perhaps a phaetic gyro and a safety belt, then another and another. There would always be a crutch to lean on for one thing and then room enough to develop something else, until everyone would be loaded down with too many cures to operate. A cure was a last resort, dope for a malignancy case, euthanasia for the hopeless. Enforced cures would be a curse for the individual and the race. But Infield let himself relax. How could anyone force a mechanical relief for neurotic or psychopathic symptoms on someone who didn't want or need it? "Perhaps you don't see how it could be done," Price said. "I'll explain." Reggie's heavy hand sat a straight bourbon down before Price and another before Infield. Price stared at the drink almost without comprehension of how it came to be. He started to sweat. "George, drink it." The voice belonged to a young woman, a blonde girl with pink skin and suave draped clothes. In this den of the cured, Infield thought half humorously, it was surprising to see a normal, an incomplete. But then he noticed something about the baby she carried. The cure had been very simple. It wasn't even a mechanized half-human robot, just a rag doll. She sat down at the table. "George," she said, "drink it. One drink won't raise your alcohol index to the danger point. You've got to get over this fear of even the sight or smell of liquor." The girl turned to Infield. "You're one of us, but you're new, so you don't know about George. Maybe you can help if you do. It's all silly. He's not an alcoholic. He didn't need to put that cure on his head. It's just an excuse for not drinking. All of this is just because a while back something happened to the baby here." She adjusted the doll's blanket. "When he was drinking. Just drinking, not drunk. I don't remember what happened to the baby. It wasn't important. But George has been brooding about it ever since. I guess he thinks something else bad will happen because of liquor. That's silly. Why don't you tell him it's silly?" "Maybe it is," Infield said softly. "You could take the shock if he downed that drink, and the shock might do you good." Price laughed shortly. "I feel like doing something very melodramatic, like throwing my drink, and yours, across the room, but I haven't got the guts to touch those glasses. Do it for me, will you? Cauterizing the bite might do me good if I've been bitten by a rabid dog, but I don't have the nerve to do it." Before Infield could move, Reggie came and set both drinks on a little circular tray. He moved away. "I knew it. That's all he did. Just look at the drink. Makes me laugh." Price wiped the sweat off his palms. Infield sat and thought. Mrs. Price cooed to the rag doll, unmindful of either of them now. "You were explaining," the psychiatrist said. You were going to tell me how you were going to cure the incompletes. I said we were going to do it. Actually, you will play a greater part than I, Dr. Infield. The psychiatrist sat rigidly. You didn't think you could give me your right name in front of your own office building and that I wouldn't recognize you. I know some psychiatrists are sensitive about wearing cures themselves, but it is a mark of honor of the completely sane man. You should be proud of your cure and eager to cure others. Very eager. Just what do you mean? He already suspected Price's meaning. Price leaned forward. There is one phobia that is so widespread, a cure is not even thought of. Hypochondria. Hundreds of people come to your office for a cure, and you turn them away. Suppose you and the other cured psychiatrists give everybody who comes to you a cure. Infield gestured vaguely. A psychiatrist wouldn't hand out cures unless they were absolutely necessary. You'll feel differently after you've been cured for a while yourself. Other psychiatrists have. Before Infield could speak, a stubble-faced, barrel-chested man moved past the table. He wore a safety belt. It was the man Price had called Davies, the one who had fastened one of his safety lines to Infield in the street. Davies went to the bar in the back. "Give me a bottle," he demanded of a vacant-eyed Reggie. He came back toward them, carrying the bottle in one hand, brushing off raindrops with the other. He stopped beside Price and glared. Price leaned back. The chair creaked. Mrs. Price kept cooing to the doll. "You made me fall," Davies accused. Price shrugged. "You were unconscious. You never knew it." Sweat broke out on Davies's forehead. "You broke the code. Don't you think I can imagine how it was to fall? You louse." Suddenly, Davies triggered his safety belt. At close range, before the lines could fan out in a radius, all the lines in front attached themselves to Price. The ones at each side clung to their table and the floor, and all the others to the table behind Infield. Davies released all lines except those on Price, and then threw himself backward, dragging Price out of his chair and onto the floor. Davies didn't mind making others fall. They were always trying to make him fall, just so they could laugh at him or pounce on him. Why shouldn't he like to make them fall first? Expertly, Davies moved forward and looped the loose lines around Price's head and shoulders, and then around his feet. He crouched beside Price and shoved the bottle into the gasping mouth and poured. Price twisted against the binding lines in blind terror, gagging and spouting whiskey. Davies laughed and tilted the bottle more. Mrs. Price screamed, "The cure! If you get that much liquor in his system, it will kill him!" She rocked the rag doll in her arms, trying to soothe it, and stared in horror. Infield hit the big man behind the ear. He dropped the bottle and fell over sideways on the floor. Fear and hate mingled in his eyes as he looked up at Infield. "Nonsense," Infield told himself. "Eyes can't register emotion." Davies released his lines and drew them in. He got up precariously. "I'm going to kill you," he said, glaring at Infield. "You made me fall worse than Georgie did. I'm really going to kill you." Infield wasn't a large man, but he had pressed 250 many times in a gin. He grabbed Davies' belt with both hands and lifted him about 6 inches off the floor. "I could drop you," the psychiatrist said. "No," Davies begged weakly. "Please." "I'll do it if you cause more trouble." Infield sat down and rubbed his aching forearms. Davies backed off in terror, right into the arms of Reggie. The waiter closed his huge hands on the acrophobe's shoulders. "You broke the code all the way," Reggie said. "The good book says thou shouldn't kill, or something like that, and so does the code." "Let him go, Reggie," Price choked out, getting to his feet. "I'm not dead. He wiped his hand across his mouth. No, you aren't. Infield felt an excitement pounding through him, same as when he had diagnosed his first case. No, better than that. That taste of liquor didn't kill you, Price. Nothing terrible happened. You could find some way to get rid of that cure. Price stared at him as if he were a padded cell case. That's different. I'd be a hopeless drunk without the cure. Besides, no one ever gets rid of a cure. They were all looking at Infield. Somehow, he felt this represented a critical point in history. It was up to him which turn the world took, the world as represented by these 4 cured people. I'm afraid I'm for less cures instead of more, Price. Look, if I can show you that someone can discard a cure, would you get rid of that, if I may use the word, monstrous thing on your head? Price grinned. Infield didn't recognize its smugness at the time. I'll show you. He took off the circlet with the lightning rod and yanked at the wire running down into his collar. The new old excitement within was running high. He felt the wire snap and come up easily. He threw the cure on the floor. Now, he said, I am going out in that rainstorm. There's thunder and lightning out there. I'm afraid, but I can get along without a cure, and so can you. You can't! Nobody can! Price screamed after him. He turned to the others. If he reveals us, the cause is lost. We've got to stop him, for good. We've got to go after him. It's slippery, Davies whimpered. I might fall. Mrs. Price cuddled her rag doll. I can't leave the baby, and she mustn't get wet. Well, there's no liquor out there, and you can study your text in the lightning flashes, Reggie. Come on. Running down the streets that were tunnels of shining tar, running into the knifing ice bristles of the rain, Henry Infield realized that he was very frightened of the lightning. There is no action without a reason. He knew from the old neglected books. He had a latent fear of lightning when he chose the lightning rod cure. He could have picked a safety belt or phoetic gyro just as well. He sneezed. He was soaked through, but he kept on running. He didn't know what Price and Reggie planned to do when they caught him. He slipped and fell. He would soon find out what they wanted. The excitement was all gone now, and had left an empty space into which fear rushed. Reggie said, We shall make a sacrifice. Infield looked up and saw the lightning reflected on the blade of a thin knife. Infield reached toward it more in fascination than fear. He managed to get all his fingers around 2 of Reggie's. He jerked, and the knife fell into Infield's palm. The psychiatrist pulled himself erect by holding to Reggie's arm. Staggering to his feet, he remembered what he must do and slashed at the waiter's head. A gash streaked across the man's brow, and blood poured into his eyes. He screamed, I can't see the words. It was his problem. Infield usually solved other people's problems, but now he ran away. He couldn't even solve his own. Infield realized that he had gone mad as he held the thin blade high overhead, but he did need some kind of lightning rod. Price, who was right behind him, gaining, had been right. No one could discard a cure. He watched the lightning play its light on the blade of his cure, and he knew that Price was going to kill him in the next moment. He was wrong. The lightning hit him first. Reggie squinted under the bandage at the lettering on the door that said Infield and Morgan, and opened the door. He ran across the room to the man sitting at the desk, reading by the swivel light. Mr. Morgan, your partner, Mr. Infield, he... Just a moment. Morgan switched on the room lights. What were you saying? Mr. Infield went out without his cure in a storm and was struck by lightning. We took him to the morgue. He must have been crazy to go out without his cure. Morgan stared into his bright desk light without blinking. This is quite a shock to me. Would you mind leaving? I'll come over to your place and you can tell me about it later. Reggie went out. Yes, sir. He was struck by lightning, struck dead. He must have been crazy to leave his cure. The door closed. Morgan exhaled. Poor Infield. But it wasn't the lightning that killed him, of course. Morgan adjusted the soundproofing plugs in his ears, thinking that you did have to have quite a bit of light to read lips. The thunder, naturally, was what had killed Infield. Loud noise, any noise, that would do it every time. Too bad Infield had never really stopped being one of the incompletes. Dangerous people. He would have to deal with them. The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now, for the next story. The Hated by Frederik Pohl, writing as Paul Fleer, originally published in Galaxy Science Fiction, January 1958. Narrated by Tom Trussel. The bar didn't have a name. No name of any kind. Not even an indication that it had ever had one. All it said on the outside was, Cafe. Eat. Cocktails. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. But it was a bar. It had a big TV set going yatata yatata in 3 glorious colours, and a jukebox that tried to drown out the TV with that lousy music they play. Anyway, it wasn't a kid hangout. I kind of like it, but I wasn't supposed to be there at all. It's in the contract. I was supposed to stay in New York and the New England states. Cafe, Eat, Cocktails was right across the river. I think the name of the place was Hoboken, but I'm not sure. It all had a kind of dreamy feeling to it. I couldn't even remember going there. I remembered one minute I was downtown New York, looking across the river. I did that a lot. And then I was there. I don't remember crossing the river at all. I was drunk, you know. You know how it is. Double bourbons and keep them coming. And after a while, the bartender stops bringing me the ginger ale because gradually I forget to mix them. I got pretty loaded long before I left New York. I realized that. I guess I had to get pretty loaded to risk the pension and all. Used to be I didn't drink much, but now, I don't know. When I have one drink, I get to thinking about Sam and Wally and Chowderhead and Gilvy and the captain. If I don't drink, I think about them too, and then I take a drink. And that leads to another drink, and it all comes out to the same thing. Well, I guess I said it already. I drink a pretty good amount, but you can't blame me. There was a girl. I always get a girl someplace. Usually they aren't much, and this one wasn't either. I mean, she was probably somebody's mother. She was around 35, and not so bad, though she had a long scar under her ear down along her throat to the little round spot where her larynx was. It wasn't ugly. She smelled nice. Well, I could still smell, you know, and she didn't talk much. I liked that. Only, well, did you ever meet somebody with a nervous cough? But when you say something funny, a little funny, not a big yock, they don't laugh and they don't stop with just smiling, but they sort of cough. She did that. I began to itch. I couldn't help it. I asked her to stop it. She spilled her drink and looked at me almost as though she was scared, and I had tried to say it quietly too. Sorry, she said, a little angry, a little scared. Sorry, but you don't have to. Forget it. Sure, but you asked me to sit down here with you, remember? If you're going to... Forget it. I nodded at the bartender and held up 2 fingers. "You need another drink," I said. "The thing is," I said, "Gilvy used to do that."
"What?"
"That cough." She looked puzzled.
"You mean like this?"
"God damn it, stop it!" Even the bartender looked over at me that time. Now she was really mad, but I didn't want her to go away. I said, "Gilvy was a fellow who went to Mars with me, Pat Gilvy."
"Oh."
She sat down again and leaned across the table, low. "Mars." The bartender brought our drinks and looked at me suspiciously. I said, "Say, Mac, would you turn down the air conditioning?" "My name isn't Mac. No." "Have a heart. It's too cold in here." "Sorry." He didn't sound sorry. I was cold. I mean, that kind of weather is always cold in those places. You know, around New York in August, it hits 80, 85, 90. All the places have air conditioning, and what they really want is for you to wear a shirt and tie. But I like to walk a lot. You would too, you know. And you can't walk around much in long pants and a suit coat and all that stuff. Not around there. Not in August. And so then, when I went into a bar, it'd have one of those built-in freezers for the used car salesmen with their dates and maybe their wives, all dressed up. For what? But I froze. "Mars," the girl breathed. "Mars." I began to itch again. "Want to dance?" "They don't have a license," she said. "Byron, I didn't know you'd been to Mars. Please tell me about it." "It was all right," I said. That was a lie. She was interested. She forgot to smile. It made her look nicer. She said, "I knew a man, my brother-in-law. He was my husband's brother. I mean my ex-husband." "I get the idea." "He worked for General Atomic in Rockford, Illinois. You know where that is?" "Sure." I couldn't go there, but I knew where Illinois was. "He worked on the first Mars ship. 15 years ago, wasn't it? He always wanted to go himself, but he couldn't pass the tests." She stopped and looked at me. I knew what she was thinking, but I didn't always look this way, you know. Not that there's anything wrong with me now, but I couldn't pass the tests anymore. Nobody can. That's why we're all one-trippers. I said, "The only reason I'm shaking like this is because I'm cold." It wasn't true, of course. It was that cough of Gilvy's. I didn't like to think about Gilvy, or Sam, or Chowderhead, or Wally, or the captain. I didn't like to think about any of them. It made me shake. You see, we couldn't kill each other. They wouldn't let us do that. Before we took off, they did something to our minds to make sure. What they did, it doesn't last forever. It lasts for 2 years, and then it wears off. That's long enough, you see, because that gets you to Mars and back, and it's plenty long enough in another way, because it's like a straitjacket. You know how to make a baby cry? Hold his hands. It's the most basic thing there is. What they did to us so we couldn't kill each other, it was like being tied up, like having our hands held so we couldn't get free. Well, but 2 years was long enough. Too long. The bartender came over and said, "Pal, I'm sorry. See, I turned the air conditioning down. You all right? You look so." I said, "Sure, I'm all right." He sounded worried. I hadn't even heard him come back. The girl was looking worried too. I guess because I was shaking so hard I was spilling my drink. I put some money on the table without even counting it. "It's all right," I said. "We were just going." "We were?" She looked confused. But she came along with me. They always do, once they find out you've been to Mars. In the next place, she said, between trips to the powder room,
It must take a lot of courage to sign up for something like that. Were you scientifically inclined in school? Don't you have to know an awful lot to be a space flyer? Did you ever see any of those little monkey characters they say live on Mars? I read an article about how they lived in little cities of pup tents or something like that, only they didn't make them, they grew them. Funny, ever see those? That trip must have been a real drag, I bet. What is it, 9 months? You couldn't have a baby. Excuse me, tell me, all that time, how'd you, manage things? I mean, didn't you ever have to go to the, or anything?
We managed, I said. She giggled, and that reminded her, so she went to the powder room again. I thought about getting up and leaving while she was gone, but what was the use of that? I'd only pick up somebody else. It was nearly midnight. A couple of minutes wouldn't hurt. I reached in my pocket for the little box of pills they give us. It isn't refillable, but we get a new prescription in the mail every month, along with a pension check. The label on the box said, "Caution. Use only as directed by physician. Not to be taken by persons suffering heart condition, digestive upset, or circulatory disease. Not to be used in conjunction with alcoholic beverages." I took 3 of them. I don't like to start them before midnight, but anyway I stopped shaking. I closed my eyes, and then I was on the ship again. The noise in the bar became the noise of the rockets and the air washers and the sludge sluices. I began to sweat, although this place was air-conditioned too. I could hear Wally whistling to himself the way he did, the sound muffled by his oxygen mask and drowned in the rocket noise, but still perfectly audible. The tune was Sophisticated Lady. Sometimes it was Easy to Love, and sometimes Chasing Shadows, but mostly Sophisticated Lady. He was from Juilliard. Somebody sneezed, and it sounded just like Chowderhead sneezing. You know how everybody sneezes according to his own individual style? Chowderhead had a ladylike little sneeze. It went "Hutta!" real quick, all through the mouth, no nose involved. The captain went "Rush!" Wally was "Ashoo! Ashoo! Ashoo!" Gilvy was "Hutsha!" Sam didn't sneeze much, but he sort of coughed and sprayed, and that was worse. Sometimes I used to think about killing Sam by tying him down and having Wally and the captain sneeze him to death. But that was a kind of a joke, naturally, when I was feeling good. Or pretty good. Usually I thought about a knife for Sam. For Chowderhead it was a gun, right in the belly, 1 shot. For Wally it was a Tommy gun, just stitching him up and down, back and forth. The captain I would put in a cage with hungry lions, and Gilvy I'd strangle with my bare hands. That was probably because of the cough, I guess. She was back. "Please tell me about it," she begged. "I'm so curious." I opened my eyes. "You want me to tell you about it?" "Oh, please." "About what it's like to fly to Mars on a rocket?" "Yes." "All right," I said. It's wonderful what 3 little white pills will do. I wasn't even shaking. There's 6 men, see? In a space the size of a Buick, and that's all the room there is. 2 of us in the bunks all the time, 4 of us on watch. Maybe you want to stay in the sack an extra 10 minutes, because it's the only place on the ship where you can stretch out, the only place where you can rest without somebody's elbow in your side. But you can't, because by then it's the next man's turn. And maybe you don't have elbows in your side while it's your turn off watch, but in the starboard bunk there's the air regenerator master valve. I bet I could still show you the bruises right around my kidneys. And in the port bunk there's the emergency escape hatch handle. That gets you right in the temple if you turn your head too fast. And you can't really sleep. I mean, not soundly, because of the noise. That is, when the rockets are going. When they aren't going, then you're in free fall, and that's bad too, because you dream about falling. And when they're going, I don't know, I think it's worse. It's pretty loud. And even if it weren't for the noise, if you sleep too soundly, you might roll over on your oxygen line. Then you dream about drowning. Ever do that? You're strangling and choking, and you can't get any air. It isn't dangerous, I guess. Anyway, it always woke me up in time, though I heard about a fellow in a flight 6 years ago. Well, so you've always got this oxygen mask on, all the time, except if you take it off for a second to talk to somebody. You don't do that very often, because what is there to say? Oh, maybe the first couple of weeks, sure, everybody's friends then. You don't even need the mask for that matter, or not very much. Everybody's still pretty clean. The place smells, oh, let's see, about like the locker room in a gym. You know, you can stand it. That's if nobody's got space sickness, of course. We were lucky that way. But that's about how it's going to get anyway, you know. Outside the masks, it's soup. It isn't that you smell it so much. You kind of taste it in the back of your mouth, and your eyes sting. That's after the first 2 or 3 months. Later on, it gets worse. And with the mask on, of course, the oxygen mixture is coming in under pressure. That's funny if you're not used to it. Your lungs have to work a little bit harder to get rid of it, especially when you're asleep. So after a while, the muscles get sore, and then they get sorer, and then, well. Before we take off, the psych people give us a long doodah that keeps us from killing each other, but they can't stop us from thinking about it. And after we're back on Earth, this is what you won't read about in the articles. They keep us apart. You know how they work it? We get a pension, naturally. I mean, there's got to be a pension, otherwise there isn't enough money in the world to make anybody go. But in the contract, it says to get the pension we have to stay in our own area. The whole country's marked off, 6 sections. Each has at least one big city in it. I was lucky, I got a lot of them. They try to keep it so every man's hometown is in his own section. But, well, like with us, Chowderhead and the captain both happened to come from Santa Monica. I think it was Chowderhead that got California, Nevada, all that southwest area. It was the luck of the draw. God knows what the captain got. Maybe New Jersey, I said, and took another white pill. We went on to another place, and she said suddenly, "I figured something out. The way you keep looking around." What did you figure out? Well, part of it was that you said about the other fellow getting New Jersey. This is New Jersey. You don't belong in this section, right? Right, I said after a minute. So why are you here? I know why. You're here because you're looking for somebody. That's right. She said triumphantly, "You want to find that other fellow from your crew. You want to fight him." I couldn't help shaking. White pills or no white pills. But I had to correct her. No. I want to kill him. How do you know he's here? He's got a lot of states to roam around in too, doesn't he? 6. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, all the way down to Washington. Then how do you know? He'll be here. I didn't have to tell her how I knew. But I knew. I wasn't the only one who spent his time at the border of his assigned area, looking across a river or staring across a state line, knowing that somebody was on the other side. I knew. You fight a war, and you don't have to guess that the enemy might have his troops 1,000 miles away from the battle line. You know where his troops will be. You know he wants to fight too. Hatta! Hatta! I spilled my drink. I looked at her. You didn't... She looked frightened.
What's the matter?"
"Did you just sneeze?"
"Sneeze? Me? Did I?"
I said something quick and nasty. I don't know what. No, it hadn't been her. I knew it. It was Chowderhead's sneeze. Chowderhead. Marvin T. Roebuck, his name was. 5 feet 8 inches tall. Dark complected, with a cast in one eye. Spoke with a Midwest kind of accent, even though he came from California. Shriek for shriek. Horror for horror. Like that. It drove me crazy after a while. Maybe that gives you an idea what he talked about mostly. A skunk. A thoroughgoing, deep-rooted, mother-murdering skunk. I kicked over my chair and roared, "Roebuck! Where are you, damn you?" The bar was all at once silent. Only the jukebox kept going. "I know you're here!" I screamed. "Come out and get it! You louse! I told you I'd get you for calling me a liar the day Wally sneaked a smoke." Silence. Everybody looking at me. Then the door of the men's room opened. He came out. He looked lousy. Eyes all red-rimmed and his hair falling out. The poor crumb couldn't have been over 29. He shrieked. "You!" He called me a million names. He said, "You thieving rat! I'll teach you to try to cheat me out of my candy ration." He had a knife. I didn't care. I didn't have anything, and that was stupid, but it didn't matter. I got a bottle of beer from the next table and smashed it against the back of a chair. It made a good weapon, you know. I'd take that against a knife any time. I ran toward him, and he came all staggering and lurching toward me, looking crazy and desperate, mumbling and raving. I could hardly hear him, because I was talking too. Nobody tried to stop us. Somebody went out the door, and I figured it was to call the cops, but that was all right. Once I took care of Chowderhead, I didn't care what the cops did. I went for the face. He cut me first. I felt the knife slide up along my left arm, but, you know, it didn't even hurt, only kind of stung a little. I didn't care about that. I got him in the face, and the bottle came away, and it was all like grey and white jelly, and then blood began to spring out. He screamed. Oh, that scream! I never heard anything like that scream. It was what I had been waiting for all my life for. I kicked him as he staggered back, and he fell. And I was on top of him, with the bottle, and I was careful to stay away from the heart or the throat, because that was too quick. But I worked over the face, and I felt his knife get me a couple times more, and I woke up, you know. And there was Dr. Santley over me with a hypodermic needle that he'd just taken out of my arm, and 4 male nurses in fatigues holding me down, and I was drenched with sweat. For a minute I didn't know where I was. It was a horrible, queasy, falling sensation, as though the bar and the fight and the world were all dissolving into smoke around me. Then I knew where I was. It was almost worse. I stopped yelling and just lay there, looking up at them. Dr. Santley said, trying to keep his face friendly and non-committal, "You're doing much better, Byron, boy. Much better." I didn't say anything. He said, "You worked through the whole thing in 2 hours and 8 minutes. Remember the first time? You were 16 hours killing him. Captain Van Wyck it was that time, remember? Who was it this time?" "Chowderhead." I looked at the male nurses. Doubtfully they let go of my arms and legs. "Chowderhead," said Dr. Santley. "Oh, Roebuck, that boy," he said mournfully, his expression saddened. "He is not coming along nearly as well as you. Nearly. He can't run through a cycle in less than 5 hours. And that's peculiar. It's usually you he—" Well, I better not say that, shall I? No sense setting up a counter-impression when your pores are all open, so to speak. He smiled at me, but he was a little worried in back of the smile. I sat up. "Anybody got a cigarette?" Give him a cigarette, Johnson, the doctor ordered the male nurse standing alongside my right foot. Johnson did. I fired up. You're coming along splendidly, Dr. Santley said. He was one of these psych guys that thinks if you say it's so, it makes it so. You know that kind? We'll have you down under an hour before the end of the week. That's marvellous progress. Then we can work on the conscious level. You're doing extremely well, whether you know it or not. Why, in 6 months, say in 8 months, because I like to be conservative, he twinkled at me, we'll have you out of here. You'll be the first of your crew to be discharged, do you know that? That's nice, I said. The others aren't doing so well? No, not at all well, most of them. Particularly Dr. Gilvey. The run-throughs leave him in terrible shape. I don't mind admitting I'm worried about him. That's nice, I said, and this time I meant it. He looked at me thoughtfully, but all he did was say to the male nurses, He's all right now. Help him off the table. It was hard standing up. I had to hold on to the rail around the table for a minute. I said my set little speech. Dr. Santley, I want to tell you again how grateful I am for this. I was reconciled to living the rest of my life confined to one part of the country, the way the other crews always did. But this is much better. I appreciate it. I'm sure the others do too. Of course, boy, of course. He took out a fountain pen and made a note on my chart. I couldn't see what it was, but he looked gratified. It's no more than you have coming to you, Byron, he said. I'm grateful that I could be one to make it come to pass. He glanced conspiratorially at the male nurses. You know how important this is to me. It's a triumph of a whole new approach to psychic rehabilitation. I mean to say our heroes of space travel are entitled to freedom when they come back home to Earth, aren't they? Definitely, I said, scrubbing some of the sweat off my face onto my sleeve. So we've got to end this system of designated areas. We can't avoid the tensions that accompany space travel, no. But if we can help you eliminate harmful tensions with a few run-throughs, why, it's not too high a price to pay, is it? Not a bit. I mean to say, he said, warming up, you can look forward to the time when you'll be able to mingle with your old friends from the rocket, free and easy, without any need for restraint. That's a lot to look forward to, isn't it? It is, I said. I look forward to it very much, I said. And I know exactly what I'm going to do the first time I meet one. I mean, without any restraints, as you say, I said. And it was true. I did. Only it wouldn't be a broken beer bottle that I would do it with. I had much more elaborate ideas than that.
The End. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now, for the next story. My Robot by Henry Slesar, writing as O. H. Leslie. Originally published in Fantastic, February 1957. Narrated by Tom Trussel. How I wish 44 were here. What a joy to be a child again, and sit once more in his strong wide lap, and rest my fevered cheek against the cool metal surface of his chest, and let my sticky, stumpy fingers play idly over the buttons of his back, and finally press down the one that brought forth his soothing, smoothing, story-telling voice. There was once a shoemaker who through no fault of his own had become so poor that at last he had only leather enough for one pair of shoes. Oh, 44, what have they done with you? Memory, memory, so sweet, so painful. What was the rhyme that father taught me? The rhyme that told me how 44 worked. Information, registration, consideration, memory, calculation, conversation, robots made by Emery.
my father. A big man, a brilliant man, and I was an Emery too. And when I grew up, great things were expected of me. For didn't I have 4-4? What child could cope for a better tutor? Information, registration, consideration, memory. Oh, 4-4, how could I have ever hated your cold, cruel chest, your icy arms, your frozen mechanical affection? How could I have struck your brain housing with such fury, beating the heavy hammer in great gongs? Yes, father, I deserved your punishment. You were right. I was wrong. Again. Only beat me again. How could I feel such gross ingratitude again? My mother, "He's only a child," shrieking at him. "He's only 7. How soon his red anger died. Remorse, regret, eyes staring in bewilderment at the thick brown strap in his hand. "He could have destroyed him," he said, in a voice I didn't know. "He could have smashed the work of a lifetime. 44 experiments, 12 years, and he could have—" Oh, father, how I wronged you! Again. But how soon I learned. Cold steel or warm flesh, how little the difference really mattered. My mother's sleepy-time kiss, once so sweet and comforting. My father's gruff hair-rumpling. How trivial these childhood pleasures seemed after the lessons of 4-4, the strength of 4-4, the quick thrilling response of 4-4 to every childish command. Oh, 4-4, how well I learned your ways. Information, registration, consideration, memory. "A whole year?" I said. "Maybe a little less," said my mother. "It's a very important assignment," said my father. "A great honour," said my mother, stroking my hair, as if to comfort me. "It's a government project, and very secret. Can you understand that? Your mother and I will be living in very cramped quarters and leading greatly restricted lives. There won't be any playgrounds, or children your own age, or anything." "And besides," said my mother, was that a tear on her face, "you'll have Aunt Huldah and 4-4, of course." "You'll be all right," said my father, as if he really knew. Was I happy? Was I sad? 4-4, do you remember? What did I say to you that night in the aloneness of my room? Did I cry? On the lap, head against the chest, press the button, drowsy listening, soothing, smoothing, storytelling voice. Now the Queen, having eaten Snow White's heart, as she supposed, felt quite sure that now she was the first and fairest, and so she came to her mirror and said, "Information, registration, consideration, memory." "Say that again! You heard me. I dare you to say it again. You're an orphan. I heard my mother say so. You ain't got no father. You're a liar. Who's a liar? Who's a liar? I'll show you who's a liar." A scuffle in the sand. A hard ball of fingers on my nose, blood on my shirt, yelling, screaming, crying. "I'm not an orphan. I'm not." "I'll learn you who's a liar. I'll show you, little snot-nosed stupid orphan." Hot tears, shameless, screaming. 4-4, 4-4, pounding on my ribs, then
Holy Christmas! Holy! Revenge, 4-4! Revenge! Ma! Ma! Hold him, 4-4. Punch him, 4-4. Bloody nose, 4-4. Bloodier than mine. Revenge! Revenge, 4-4. Revenge! Information. Registration. Consideration. Memory. Oh, he's been a good boy, Mr. Emery, said Aunt Huldah. But he broke the nose of the brown boy, she added. He did what? Said my father. Would the thick brown strap, the sudden red anger, appear again? I cringed. But father laughed. Well, well, well! He laughed again, and squeezed my upper arm. I had pleased him. Oh, 4-4, I love you best, but that moment was sweet, sweet. He's a real Emery, my father said. A real Emery. But don't tell his mother, Huldah. She wouldn't understand. It was 4-4, I said. The honesty of childhood. Of course it was. My father smiled with pleasure at my robot. He's a better teacher than I imagined. Now I don't feel so bad about leaving again. My mother came in. Leaving again? I said to her. Was I sad, 4-4? Did I cry? The experiments aren't completed, my mother answered. Your father and I will have to stay at least another 6 months. Father said, But it's worth it, son. There may be a whole army of 4-4s some day. A whole army? My mother looked frightened. It's dreadful, Richard, dreadful. Laura. Metal soldiers, robot killers. My father looked displeased. This is no time for that kind of talk. You knew full well what my assignment was about. I'm not ashamed of it. He looked at me sternly. And don't you be either. Some day you may be carrying on my work. Do you know that? My mother's face went white. My robots will do all the world's work, my father said. Not just the fighting. But they know a lot about that too. He turned his eyes on me again, significantly, and he smiled. In the middle of that night, awakening suddenly, hearing an unexpected sound. My mother sobbing. My father whispering harshly, so close to red anger. Oh, shut up, Laura! For heaven's sake, shut up! Oh, 4-4, quick, tell me a story. The wide lap, the cool chest, the soothing voice. Once upon a time there lived a king and a queen, very peacefully together. Information, registration, consideration, memory. Only a rhyme, but... Sick? Sick? With what? Tell me that, with what? My mother, drawn and pale, the plump hand that we could touch so gently, now thin and bony, clutching the sheet. Softly, I don't know, Richard. The doctors should know, Laura. The hospital should know. Do you doubt what they said? No, I don't doubt them. 4-4, why was I so frightened? They've seen cases like yours before, those army doctors. They have an ugly word for it in the army, Laura. Richard, I'm sorry. Anger. Red anger. Would he take the thick brown strap to her? Oh, never, 4-4, never! 2 years of work, 2 years, and now that pipsqueak Morgan is filling in for me. It's just not fair, don't you see that? And all because you think you're sick. Richard! Never mind, never mind. I've stood by your bedside long enough. Huldah can take care of you. You don't need me. You have what you want. You'll be home to smother that boy with sticky love. You'll be happy. But I must get back to work. Why did I cry, 4-4? What frightened me so? Richard, please!
What is it?
Don't go back.
What?
Don't go back there. Don't help them make those monsters.
My mother, up on her feet, following him to the door. She looked so small. Why, my mother was small.
Don't be a fool, Laura.
It's a sin to make them, a mortal sin.
Getting awfully religious, aren't you? This isn't like you, Laura.
Clutching at him, tugging, pulling.
Richard, don't go.
You're hysterical. Let go of me and get back to bed. That's the only place you feel important, isn't it?
I won't let you go. I won't.
Tugging, pulling. Oh, 4-4, why did I have to watch?
Stop it, Laura.
Shrieking, crying.
Richard! Richard!
Oh, 4-4, did it really happen? The upraised arm, that hard, flat palm, the sharp, cracking noise, the moan of shock and pain. Oh, 4-4, did it really happen? Revenge, 4-4. What have they done with him? Dismantled him, fused him, melted him, battered him, crushed him. Has his metal become bullets, gun barrels, bombshells? Or were the bars on the windows of my room once this strong, cool chest, his sturdy legs, his comforting arms? Oh, 4-4, my robot, how I wish you were here.
The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And now, for the next story.
Sibling by Leslie Waltham. Originally published in Thrilling Wonder Stories, August 1953. Narrated by Tom Trussel. Andro, first liaison officer of the third planet, floated homeward with his wife's present beside him. His boat, pulled by an underwater sunburst of luminous fish, befitted a man of importance, a man of prestige and position. He glided past the milk-glass city where the old ones rocked and crooned before memory pools, where sticky huddles of children listened to the lyre flowers, and where the glances of silver-eyed men and women examined and met and held fast. He drifted to his home on the ledge of a mountain, where he was met by his wife with her plain, good face. And she looked at the present, who stood behind him, and shivered. Maya, the Earth One, rose as her companion prepared to go. She glanced at the valley below. Fingers of twilight inquired into its sands for the first soft dying of day. "It's simply too glorious, isn't it?" Her guest's voice clawed at irritation. "I suppose so," she shrugged. The sleepy perfumes of the lagoon offered her its feather boats, curling, amber-crusted reminders of lost autumn leaves at home. The mountain, ripped from a vortex of sky, was kindling its transparent crags with an inner glow. Like cracked ice in a cool glass, she thought, and her fingertips reached for the forgotten chill. Why did she hate it so? This washed blue world that had mothered Morn, and perhaps others made of the same substance? "Goodness, my dear, how can you look at this marvellous scenery and be so lukewarmish?" "I don't know." Her face turned skyward. "It's up there, I think. We've been here 6 Earth months and haven't had one glimpse of the sun." The churning clouds sucked upon themselves in answer. "And you never will," her comrade chirped. "That's Venus for you. But you knew that, darling, when you came." "Only the words I knew. But the feeling waits for you outside the words." The other woman laughed, plucking daintily for her wrap. "You are in a fret today, Maya." "Those clouds must go from here to the day after eternity. I sometimes wonder if the sun is still out there." Well, really, dear girl, to hear you talk, a person would think this was a very trying place instead of a perfectly exquisite planet, in spite of a 10-day rotation period. That too, sighed Maya. That too. I remember when I was a little girl and my nurse made me nap in the daytime. I thought she was always there, watching me from some place I didn't know about. I feel that way during the sleep periods here. Somewhere a wind clock breathed its warning of the time. Gracious, the guest started. I didn't realize how long I've been here. Yes. And you poor baby. I'd forgotten about Dickie. He must be ravenous. I'll feed him right away. How is the little angel? Eats like a horse, sleeps like a rock. How healthy of him! She fluttered again over a misplaced wrap. Which is more than I can say for you, pet. Has Andrew been taking care of you? Just marvellous care. Dear Andrew. Maya would not look at her. Yes, dear Andrew. Well, I must be toddling. Now where did I put my stole? As she spoke, the portal mists billowed and shifted to produce a striking creature. A perfect silver replica of Maya. Flowing in cords of reflected light to her mistress, the creature bowed. I do your command, O Earth One. The breathing at Maya's side caught in amazement. What in heaven's name? Her question was chopped short by Maya's hand. As a mist rising, so the servant delivered the misplaced stole into astonished hands, and sprinkling a few drops of dissolving liquid over the half-eaten wine fruit, disappeared across the hazy threshold. Well, who was that? That was Morn. Maya's eyes sought a point beyond her companion's head, a distance she seemed to prefer. But what was that? That was... She had difficulty in focusing on it. That was only God knows what. She was sent to me by the elders of Venus as a mark of respect for Andrew. But how did she know I couldn't find... I told her. But you haven't been near the house. My mind. I told her with my mind. Eyebrows lifted ecstatically. Is she telepathic? I suppose you'd call it that. I think of something. Sometimes I do no more than graze the thought. And like a genie from some dead lamp, Morn does it. The minute you think of it? If I don't specify any particular time. But she has a delaying mechanism, and I can think it for tomorrow, or next week, or next year. It doesn't matter. But how cunning! You think so? It didn't sound like a question. Of course, darling. Suddenly Maya stood fist-high in anger. Well, it isn't, she cried. What do you think it's like having everything taken away from you? You try running like a fool every time you think of something you'd like to do. Maya, you shouldn't talk that way. Sorry. A smile twisted the silence. But there are some things I'd like to do for myself. I might even like to take care of my own son. How perfectly amazing! The woman was aghast. Here you have this lamb of a servant, who has me completely trapped. Just thinking of anything sets her off. I don't have anything left to do. Well, counteract the order, my sweet. That's easy enough. Tell her you've changed your mind. I can't. That's just it. She's a positive mechanism and can't be reversed. The visitor's face convulsed in concern. Maya, I said you didn't look well. You've just been overdoing, that's all, and... I've just been... Maya had to be rid of this garrulous woman immediately. Grasping one fat elbow, she steered expertly, past the chiding of the shrubbery. Just a perfect treasure, through the soughing of sands. Imagine the servant as divine as that. Into a waiting boat. The tiny bark bestrode the wind. Her visitor's words washed over Maya, blue-scented and faint. I only wish I had her. I only wish you did too, she said to no one in particular. Thoughts of Dickie carried her back into the house. Dickie, her tiny scrubbed morsel, her beloved pink tyrant.
Maybe Morn wouldn't be there. Only she would be, of course. Maya's son strode imperially across his crib, knee-deep in a magnificent flutter of chewed paper bits. His greeting to her shone. "Mum, Mum, Mummy, Mum." She went to him and untangled his legs. Warm arms opened and closed. "My sweet pumpkins," one ear invited nibbling. "You had to wait so long. Mummy's going to feed her baby right away." "No, no." The pink sills of his lips formed words with great effort. "Morny feeded me. I threw." Maya swung sharp on a resentment, body tightened. "Morn, I didn't tell you to feed him. I wanted to do it. I even thought about—" She waited, remembering, as the silver beauty bowed. "I obeyed your command, O Earth One." They regarded one another across a dark silence. Then Maya's body slackened. "Thank you," she said as she went into her sleeping chamber. And she sat for a long time staring into her empty hands. Andro showed no concern. "I can't understand your attitude, Maya." He had eaten his dinner quietly, staring down into the foams of the cooking pit, sitting brittle and stiff, as befitted a man of importance, a man of prestige and position. And Maya had waited for the moment when his hand would move toward her body. "Answer me." "I don't know what it is, Andro. It's just a feeling I have about her." "Please explain yourself." "I don't want her here. I was happier before she came." He withdrew his hand. "Oh, happy, happy. Who can say what makes happiness and what doesn't? Most women would be delighted that their husbands had been so honoured, but you—" "I am delighted," she insisted. "Please understand." "What is there to understand?" "That I'm also afraid." "Of Morn?" He was surprised. "Of Morn. Or myself. Or my thoughts. It's all the same thing." "What nonsense is this now?" She peered through the labyrinths of words for just the right ones. "I'm human, Andro. I can't control all my thoughts. My actions, yes. But thoughts come even when I don't call them. They can't be wrapped in tissue paper and tucked into a drawer." "Oh?" "Don't you see? Ask any psychiatrist. There is a stimulus, a reaction, an emotion, a thought. I can't do a thing about it." "I fail to see what bearing this has." "It has a lot. Things happen." She looked at the distant bubble dwellings. In them were the silver-eyed families. "What sort of things?" "Well, just a while back, when the Superior was here." After the words were there, out in the open, for him to stiffen against, she realized her error. "The Superior was here?" He was immediately alerted. "When? You didn't mention it." 3 sleep periods ago." "And?" Eye-slits watched her carefully. She opened her hands toward him. "I was hot and tired, and I happened to think I would like it if he left." "And Morn forced him?" She nodded. His face collapsed and reassembled into something blackened and hard. "Please don't get angry, Andro. Please don't." "How can you expect otherwise?" he shouted. "Stupid, silly woman that you are! You dare to jeopardize my position with your petty whims of who stays and for how long?" His fury clouded the room. "Only you could do it. Only Maya, wife of Andro." "But I've got to have some rest," she pleaded. "I've got to be able to think freely once in a while." "Think freely," she says. He stopped before her and fairly screamed into her face. "Doesn't Morn draw her energy from the sun? Doesn't she fall into a comatose sleep as soon as we go nightside? Isn't she almost dead just before daybreak? Can't you save your snivelling, puny pranks until then?" "Please, Andro, please, you don't know what that means." "You tell me." His face could not help itself. "To think, to feel only in the night.
Must I save everything, my loves, my fears, my angers, until just before daybreak?"
"Stop it!" he shrieked.
"Don't take my whole life and push it together and squeeze it into just the little time before the sun rises. Don't shove me into the dark like a sightless mole."
Seizing her by the wrists, he drew her to her feet. With her arms bound, white and aching, to his chest, he spoke into her face, slowly, softly, to a not quite bright child. "This ends here, Maya. I am the representative of the third planet. The people of Venus have seen fit to single me out and make a present to my wife. My wife will not affront them. She will not discredit me by returning this gift. She will instead adapt herself. It is a simple thing." The house waited. "Do you understand?" They stared bitterly at one another. "Do you understand?"
"I understand."
Her voice was hollow. He released her, and she sank back, her head bent over the numbed husks of her fingers. Andro stood watching the nape of her neck. He reached down abruptly and stroked a twist of hair. "Maya," he said softly, caressing her, "you will do as I ask."
"I will do as you ask."
The great liaison officer breathed deeply. "Well now, that's better." His fingers probed the hollows of her throat.
"Andro?"
She slowed him. "Yes?"
"Do you imagine they know us this well?"
"Who?"
"The elders. Do you imagine they knew we can hurt ourselves, maybe destroy ourselves, through a creature like her?"
He turned his mind on other things and undid his tunic. "Maya, I am going to bed. You will follow."
"Right away."
She crossed the room and picked up a globe from his work table, the miniature of a blue-green planet with wide seas and open plains. She held the full, wet summers, the clean, needle cities carefully in her hands. As he reached the portal, Andro paused before its flow and surge. "Oh, by the way, there is a dead bird on the wharf. I'd wish you had Morn bury it." The globe dropped in glistening fragments at her feet. She was seeing a bird, a little singing gold-plated bird, whose shrill happiness had magnified the depths of her despair, and hating its happiness, she had thought she could kill it. Maya knew the colour of the bird that Morn would bury in the morning. They sat, the three of them, saying no word, giving no sign. Like actors, Maya thought. Like actors, not acting, just stopped, waiting on a dead stage for their cues. And when the line was said, when the words she was waiting for had been uttered, would she know what to do? She was uneasy. Morn tended the water bushes, sharp against the sullen threat of clouds. Dicky, boy botanist, balanced himself on his round bottom and explored the wonders of a light flower. One finger probed into its blue-grey flesh. The flower released a stream of scent. "Nah," he said, and backed up precipitously. It had spit right at him. He teetered to his feet and, retreating, riding his fat legs with confidence. They propelled him unsteadily, like reluctant pistons, toward the wharf. Maya watched his progress with a tired half-smile. Then it wasn't even a half-smile. "Dicky!" she cried. "Come back!" Her body tensed to watch his flight. "Dicky!" The gap between the boy and ledge grew smaller and smaller. Suddenly she was on her feet and running hard. "Come back!" she called to him. "Watch out, Dicky! Watch out!" She grabbed him, a whisper from the edge, and they slid, rolling on one another to the brink. She looked into the sweet-smelling depth of the lagoon. Frightened eyes, flung hard on its waters, looked back. "Oh, Dickie!" she moaned. "Oh, Dickie, oh, Dickie, oh, Dickie!" He moved into her, pinpointed between laughter and tears. When she squeezed him, it tickled, and his face went kinky with smiles. "Why, you little imp!" She pulled him to safer sands. "What is the matter with you, running like that?" Quick, slight slaps dusting his bunting. "You can hurt yourself that way. Don't ever do that again." Head thrown back, he offered her his delight. "You naughty boy, don't you grin at me that way. I ought to shake you till your head wobbles." He ran in puppy circles, dragging at her fingers, bubbling to himself. And then from nowhere Morn appeared in a shower of sparks. She went directly to the boy and knelt before him. She laid gentle hold of his shoulders. The palms turned inward, gently, easily, seeking the line of his throat. Long fingers laced together to form a band. And she shook him. Great jerks set his head wobbling. Jolts ripped against the position of his body. He contorted into jagged spasms of limb and sound, an arm, a cry, his eyes. Maya could no longer put him together. She flung herself upon Morn with animal ferocity. Her fists struck out blindly from a time when love and violence had to be the same. She struck and struck again. She bit, but her teeth found no yielding in the flesh. She scratched, but her nails slid unnoticed from the metal. Her cries might have been the buzz of an insect. The silver sheen became red, wet red. It came from Maya. In final panic, she clutched her mangled hands together, half prayer, half weapon. As if she held a scythe, she cut back and forth across Morn's body, to and fro, across the head and back, the face and back, the shoulders and back, furious, measured, desperate, useless, useless. And as to each thing there is a season, so Morn released the boy in her own time. She stood motionless. Down the measure of hated body, Maya wasted herself till at least there was nothing left to do, but to sob and beat a little upon the earth. The statue stood stolidly above her. "I obeyed your command, O Earth One," she said, while the summer noises sang. Pacing the late afternoon, Maya fled from fear. Thoughts touched her mind in spinning flight. "Think, think," she told herself. She tried to reason, but the look of Dickie's face, the sound of his cry, hooded her effort. It would do no good at all this way. She ran to her dressing nook. Dickie slept soundly, safely, with his treasures stuffed under his stomach. Something had to be done. But what? 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 It was a wall. Andro would not be back, and even if he were, no! There was no one to turn to. A face in the reflection bowl stopped her. "Look at me," she thought. "I can't keep my mind together any longer." It was falling off bit by bit, and Morn was gathering all the pieces. She bent to meet the reflection. Her eyes were large and hulled. "What must I do?" she asked the eyes. The lips mimicked her own. The image seemed to silver. Another face, exactly like her own, looked back at her. She turned quickly, as if starting to run, but the room gave her no place to run to. What if she should do it again? What if she should some day become angry enough to loose Morn? And her mind recoiled. It had to stop, end. She had to be rid of Morn somehow. "I'll destroy her," she thought. She had moved to Dickie's crib before the lightning speared out and held her. Her face blanched. "I've done it. Dear God in heaven, I've sent out a murder wave." She groped her way to the bed and sank down, her head in her hands. Behind closed lids she waited. Time waited with her. There was nothing more, just emptiness and space. Then the wind clock stirred and exhaled. "It's almost night," she thought. What did it matter, day or night? No, stop. She raised her head and looked at something far off.
Almost night, she said aloud. Thoughts began to arrange themselves in a pattern she could almost see. Think, try, slowly now. Morn's energy was lessening already. As the sun went down, she would become weaker. Within one more rest period, she would be dormant. From then on, her sleep deepened with each passing hour. By daybreak, she would be almost dead. It wasn't so hard now. The pieces were fitting together. If the command could be timed for next week or next month, why not for just before daybreak, when Morn, in her stupor, would be completely unable to carry it out, and when Maya would be free to do what she had to do? She almost cried out, that was it, that was it, so simple, and yet so perfect. She couldn't understand why she hadn't thought of it before. Maya shut her eyes against the world and made the thought loud and clear. She gave it to Morn along the pathways of their minds. I shall destroy her just before the sun rises. She pushed it, thrust it, drove it down dark corridors to the brain that waited to receive it. I shall destroy her just before the sun rises. And turning on her face, she gave up to exhaustion. She swam upward through a sea of sleep. Abruptly, thoughts split the surface of her mind, and she sat upright. She looked around the room. Something was missing. Something had been forgotten. But there was no shape to the feeling of loss that plagued her. The curtains danced in the breeze. The room breathed quietly. It looked secure and whole. She listened for the breathing of Dickie's slumber. Glancing toward the nook, she could see the line of his cheek. His sleep was flushed and happy. But something was lost. Something was wrong. A check of the room revealed nothing. She moved about, touching small objects, feeling their safeness. It was then she heard the footsteps, and she turned to meet them. The portal mists waxed silver as Morn stood before her. Maya looked from the other's face to the container of dissolving fluid that she held in her hand. I shall obey your command, O Earth One. There was a moment of vertigo, the instant of sway just before a giant tree falls. During that instant, Maya thought 1,000 thoughts, searched through 1,000 cubbyholes toward uttered phrases. Where was the mistake? Where? This was impossible. Morn couldn't be doing this. The room was still light. The sun hadn't set. The sun, she said, and the lost was found. Morn had never seen the sun. No one on this planet had ever seen it. Morn didn't even know what it was. Somewhere a sound started, low and bubbling. The only son she knew was not the one that gave her her life. It was the boy asleep in the next room. Her own son, Maya's son. The sound grew big and round and fat. So change the words and say the sentence as Morn must say it, to see what it looked like now. I shall destroy her just before the sun rises. And the sound stretched high, high, high to the sky. Maya leaned in on it and tasted it and knew it to be her own laughter. Pretty soon the laughter stopped, but the curtains kept right on dancing. Andro, first liaison officer of the third planet, floated back to the city with his wife's present beside him. His boat, pulled by an underwater sunburst of luminous fish, befitted a man of importance, a man of prestige and position. He glided to the milk-glass city where the sleep cocoons filled and closed in on themselves, where the taper trees flared, where the old dreamed of being younger, and the young dreamed of being older.
He drifted to a castle on a ridge, on a hill, where he was met by the elders with their shuttered faces. And they looked at the present, who swayed weakly behind him, and smiled.
The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. This is what the future looked like many, many years ago.